down in the summer.
Welcome to Colorado Inside Postgame, a special web-exclusive production here on Channel 12. Let's get a quick take on the various headlines throughout 2015. We had the continuing debacle at the VA hospital in Aurora, the Gold Keen mine environmental disaster. We had continued racial tension in various American cities involving excessive force from police. And we had a huge election that really wasn't much of an election here in Denver, where we had new city council elected and Mayor Hancock was elected to a second term. Patty, there's a lot of issues in 2015, which explains why we're all dressed in our finest holiday sweater regalia. Take your pick of what you want to comment on.
I'm going to bring up one you didn't mention. And if you look over all the headlines over the last year, it is an omnipresent theme, which is growth in Denver, gentrification in Denver, and the ramifications. You have people who can't afford rent in Denver, and it's huge. And it's not just middle-class families who are moving to the suburbs because they cannot afford to live in the city. It's the young creative types who used to be coming to, who made Denver their most popular destination several years ago, and they're having trouble affording it. They're the artists who can no longer stay in Denver, who can't find studio space, so they're moving out. It's really changing the flavor of the city, and you see how upset people get. You saw it in the election because the pro-development group were booted. I mean, Susan Shepard is gone, and I think part of it, the dissatisfaction with how growth is going in this city, is the reason Chris Nevitt was also not elected to auditor. So in 2016, we've got to be smart about how we look at growth, how we look at keeping this a diverse city. And I'm not just talking about color and ethnic persuasion, I'm talking about creative types. We have to make sure that Denver keeps the mix that's made it so interesting.
Especially just the price of housing and rent in Denver is almost prohibitive for a lot of different people. David Copeland from the Independence Institute and DU Law School, we have a lot to pick from that we didn't cover in our full 2015 special. Take your pick. What do you think?
One thing that ties a lot of these topics together, I think, is rising concerns about just the competence of government. Back in 1951, when people who were socialists would say, of course the government would do great, running the entire economy. Look at how well the post office operates. And that was a persuasive argument back then. The post office, people felt they got a very good value for the money, and it was doing exactly what it was supposed to in its constitutional founding sense. It provided inexpensive, rapid communications from Hawaii to Maine, helping to tie this entire large republic together. And now there's not as much sense anywhere of the government being capable of doing things. We would want a government that can help clean up abandoned mines that are polluting. But instead, the Environmental Pollution Agency caused a catastrophe and has ever since been lying about it and covering it up. We would want, if we're going to have an army, we would want hospitals that would help veterans with their war-related injuries. But the construction of this, not only in Denver, but in many other VA hospital construction projects around the country, has been so massively incompetent. And we want police forces. And I think actually illegitimate police violence is actually much less of a problem now than it was half a century ago, including against people of color. I think there's been really good improvements in police training and significant reductions in bigoted actions. And so there's been a lot of progress on that. And some of the complaints of 2015 were very legitimate. The Tamir Rice case in Cleveland, certainly a lot of problems at the Denver Sheriff's Office. Laquan McDonald in Chicago and the cover-up about that, where you have maybe the first 2 shots are okay, but after the guy's lying on the ground, 14 more shots into him, and then suddenly all the police recording audio stopped working simultaneously. Quite a technical glitch there in the city of Chicago. Others of those were fake. The Michael Brown case in Ferguson turned out to be based on a complete lie. This whole hands up, don't shoot thing. He was shot when he was attacking and trying to kill a police officer and trying to take the officer's gun. We can make progress on improving our government if we talk realistically about the solutions, but not if we talk about only who can get a political advantage on this day versus that day. And I think it's time to say our government's state, local, federal, they're trying to do so much, they're not doing their core things in a competent way. And we'd be better off trimming some of the activities that are excessive in government and really putting concentration back and trying to make things work the way they should, because they're far from it now.
Eric Sonham, political analyst. It's 2015 jump ball. Take your pick.
I think both Patty and David went in important directions. Let me go in my own direction. It's one of those years where it seems like everything that was up is down and everything down is up. I look at college campuses across this country, which have been the scene of quite a bit of upheaval. I flash back to a number of us around this table are of a similar generation, and college campuses were the hallmark of the demand for free speech rights. And these days, they are some of the least free and least intellectually diverse. They value all kinds of diversity other than ideological diversity or intellectual diversity or diversity of opinion. And free speech is a low value. I've seen videos on various campuses of students being interviewed about what can be discussed and what cannot be discussed. And the whole column of what cannot be discussed or what cannot even be broached is getting to be a fairly long and bothersome column. College is a time, and I don't want to be one of these get off my lawn kind of guys. College is a time where kids should explore and should push boundaries, including ideological boundaries. And so that's not my pushback. The pushback is to the notion of what is off limits and the increasing sense that so much of political discourse and even civil discourse is no longer allowed in some circles, particularly circles in rather elite institutions for which parents are paying gobs of dollars to allow their offspring to attend. So I think that is a very, very bothersome trend. And again, what's up is down.
Penfield Tate, attorney QTAC Rock, also a longtime state lawmaker. Lots of things to pick from. Go for it.
You know, I look at a broader theme that I think touches on all of these. I think our civic and community culture is in danger. I think, and it's exemplified by Eric's example of what's happening on college campuses, and you see it in these political campaigns. I think we are becoming far too polarized with this winner-take-all approach. We are becoming more inwardly directed than necessarily community-focused. We've forgotten the fact that our country was founded on the concept that oppressed people went someplace else to build a new country collectively together for everyone. We're losing sight of all of that. And what we've lost in many measures, I don't think is necessarily, we question the competence of government because we've lost confidence in many respects in government because of, I think, our own sort of a jaded view of government and the fact that we don't come together as a community. I disagree with David. I think the situation you have with excessive force cases are worse now than they ever were before. You know, you think back to the times of the civil rights fights and you had, you know, fire hoses and police dogs and everything. Now you see people just getting shot in the street. And when you have DAs charging police officers with murder, something is fundamentally wrong. And, you know, I like to say twice is a pattern. We've got a pattern here because this is happening too many times in too many different communities. And there's a coalition that's beginning to build of folks. That's where there is some diversity that's occurring. There's a diverse coalition building saying government can't function this way, law enforcement can't function this way. Instead of being protected and being served, some of us are being victimized. But I think that's permeating into other aspects of our sense of our community. And we've got to get a hold of this quickly before we spiral out of control.
That is all the time we have for Colorado Inside Postgame this week. Leave us a comment and tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.